So originally, they would contact my security company. They'd be looking for a bodyguard service to help them. And what would happen is I would usually speak with them. And just like my mother back in the day, she didn't have any money. So when I would tell them the price, they would quickly hang up or say, I'm sorry, I can't afford it. And then I used that as an opportunity for the skill set that I had and the men and women who worked for me back then. I said, you know what? We can do something good with this. So I started doing the service for free. And now we continue for years. I mean, now we're 20 years in. It's 99.99% funded by profit share with our for-profit business, which is USPA Nationwide Security. So we're doing for-profit guarding of people and property. And we take 50% of those profits and we put it into Kingsman and we go ahead and find missing girls.
Hey there, hot messes. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess, where we celebrate the art of juggling life's chaos and coming out on top. I'm Stacey Isaacs, your host and resident rock star lawyer, dance mom, and survivor. We're going to dive into candid conversations about conquering challenges, embracing our unique selves, and finding success in the beautiful mess of it all. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess podcast, brought to you by workinjuryrights.com. I'm your host, Stacey Isaacs, and this morning I am very honored to have two special guests. We have Michael Evans, who is the founder and CEO of Kingsman, and we also have Brian Fitzgibbons, who is the vice president and lead investigator of that organization. Thank you guys for coming on today.
Thanks for having us.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to start with you, Mike. Can you tell the listeners what Kingsman does and the origins of this wonderful organization?
So Kingsman was formed 20 years ago, officially. It's a nonprofit, and our mission is to locate missing girls. It started by us actually helping girls and women with domestic violence escapes. So Kingsman actually started officially 20 years ago, but the real roots of Kingsman started when I was about 2 or 3 years old. So I grew up with a father who was a psychopath. And my first memory was my father attempting to murder my mother. And I created this little place in my home. Yeah. I created this little place in my home that was a little like a refuge where I felt safe. So when I was a kid, I went and saw the movie Superman. And I thought at that time that Superman lived in the movie theater in the town where I grew up, in the Shirley Twin movie theater. Oh. So I would hear my father beating my mother. I would run into the closet in my house. And in my mind, I pretended I was in that movie theater and that Superman was there. And the whole time, I just remember growing up thinking that if I ever can, I would like to be that person that comes and helps somebody in this situation. So I created Kingsman to help people like me when I was a little kid.
That is an unbelievable story. So you were at first, or at least for a decade or so, you were helping victims of domestic violence, particularly women and children, get out of those situations.
Correct. We call them domestic violence escapes. And what we would do is if a woman was trying to get away from an abusive husband, for the most part, we would send people there or go ourselves for no cost. We would also send a moving company and we would stand by while the woman got all her stuff, and then we'd help relocate her. And then it became more and more in depth. We created a witness protection program so that they could be protected to and from court, and then a complete relocation service. We started to get away from that in 2011. We still do it, but we started to get away from that around 2010, 2011, when I was hired by the Oprah Network to go undercover with a reporter named Lisa Ling on a show called Our America with Lisa Ling. And it was an expose on child trafficking in Washington, D.C. And that was the first time I had ever seen children being trafficked for sex. And I decided at that point that I wanted to focus on that. That's what we've done ever since.
Quite amazing. Real quickly, how would these victims find out about Kingsman, or how would you have found out about them?
So originally, they would contact my security company. They'd be looking for a bodyguard service to help them. And what would happen is I would usually speak with them. And just like my mother back in the day, she didn't have any money. So when I would tell them the price, they would quickly hang up or say, I'm sorry, I can't afford it. And then I use that as an opportunity for the skill set that I had and the men and women who worked for me back then. I said, you know what? We can do something good with this. So I started doing the service for free. And now we continue for years. I mean, now we're 20 years in. It's 99.99% funded by profit share with our for-profit business, which is USPA Nationwide Security. So we're doing for-profit guarding of people and property, and we take 50% of those profits and we put it into Kingsman, and we go ahead and find missing girls.
So, as the mother of two teenage daughters, this is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast. I think it's amazing work, truly amazing work that you're doing. Brian, you are the lead investigator, and how long have you been involved with Kingsman?
Yeah, so I've been involved with Kingsman for a number of years now, and I'll say it's the organization, as Mike began to describe it, really blossomed as a result of the USPA nationwide security business that we do on the for-profit side. Um, and in Kingsman, my involvement began after I met Mike after I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and he was task organizing some groups of veterans to work on a few Kingsman cases, with various skill sets. So, Kingsman as an organization is fluid case to case. We have a lot of volunteers, contractors that bring a variety of skill sets, primarily from law enforcement or military backgrounds that they bring to the table to assist with these cases that, very typically otherwise are not being thoroughly investigated by the local agency at play.
So, did you all have any involvement in Natalie Holloway in trying to locate her?
No, no, we did not. When it comes to high profile cases, we've certainly worked on a number of them. The ones, the more routine cases that we get probably hit a little closer to home. And this is something that transcends demographic. The children that go missing could be from very high net worth neighborhoods or from the poorest of poor neighborhoods, right? The common denominators wind up being the following things, right? Drugs, no parental attention in the household, parents not spending any time communicating or supervising their kids, drugs and alcohol, and then past abuse and trauma, right? So you mix those three things together, and you can overlay that over all of American society today. In a lot of the cases that we wind up getting, children are coming from homes, either $1 million home over here or, Section 8 housing on this side. And, we get those cases quite frequently for a teenage runaway at risk, certainly out of the frying pan and into the fire type of situation.
So, this is clearly very rewarding work that you guys do, I would imagine. Families are obviously indebted, emotionally forever if you do locate these missing children. Now, here in South Florida, where Mike and I are, isn't this a hotbed for sex trafficking of children. That is something I heard, but I don't know if that statistic is accurate.
So we take on a lot of cases in South Florida, a lot of cases in Miami, but you would also be surprised that we take on cases in Parkland, Florida for that exact, for sex trafficking. So it is prevalent all over the United States and abroad, but it's definitely a hot spot down here. Boca Raton, another place. It usually starts, though, as Brian can attest, with runaway girls. So they end up in halfway houses or they end up in rehabs for offenses, I would say, that can be worked out at the dinner table. And a lot of parents elect to have the state go ahead and take care of their kid. And those girls are usually running away from those locations. And that's when we'll get the case because they're running away with somebody that they met in these locations. And I've seen that in Parkland with young girls. I've also seen something similar with parents in Parkland, actual neighbors being lured into other countries and stuck there.
Wow, that's very scary. I mean, Brian, you just said that this is something that goes beyond demographics, but at the same time, Mike is saying it's happening, even in our backyard. So I know that a lot of my listeners are just, normal working moms in Parkland that would be very shocked to hear this. I mean, I remember hearing that our Walmart right here on Coral Ridge, people were saying they're coming up to kids, they're trying to sex traffic. And, I would come home and tell my husband, and he'd be like, that's ridiculous. You're being crazy. But this actually is something that occurs.
Yeah,
What
and I think hey, there have been some movies out recently, and certainly a lot of conversations about human trafficking, sex trafficking. You can't. You have to take everything Hollywood puts out with a grain of salt, right? The vast majority of these cases are not, a kid being stolen from the playground and being sold online. Okay. It's a kid being ignored by their parents for years. It's a child being ignored by teachers and school administrators for years. It's a child choosing the wrong friends for years and never having a mentor or somebody who steps in to help provide a course correction in their life. This happens over years. And then they find that new boyfriend that's got a pocket full of cash and they think they're in love. And now they're in this honeymoon phase with their new boyfriend and they run off with him. And that lasts for a month, 2 months, maybe 3 months. And that's when the sex trafficking happens. Okay. So that's when that boyfriend turns from a boyfriend to a pimp. Now, this is the reality of human trafficking that's happening all around us. The Hollywood version is a little more boogeyman in the closet, captain of the cheerleading team gets abducted off of the field and thrown in the back of a van and, sex trafficked for the next 3 years. That I'm not saying that couldn't happen or doesn't happen. I'm just saying that the vast majority of these cases, the roots of the case are grown over time, with inattention from the parents, lack of mentorship and love and support in the household, and then a cascading effect of bad decisions after bad decisions and bad friends that leads them to that person that will exploit them.
So a high profile case, and there is like a Netflix special out, is Gabby Petito. Would that be something different? I mean, she was somebody who was really, I think they were in love, and he was physically abusive. He didn't obviously sex traffic her, but it seemed like her parents were very present in her life. And that is more along the lines of the domestic violence stuff that Mike initially.
Certainly. And we do take on a number of cases like that. Like Gabby Petito's, one in particular, that we're still working on. And we have a $30,000 reward out and an active tip line is Nikki Chang Salee McCain, who went missing a year ago from Redding, California. She was the victim of some horrific domestic abuse allegedly perpetrated by her husband, Tyler McCain. And Nikki went missing on May 18th, 2024. Had a bunch of court issues, a big domestic violence case that she was set to testify on against her husband, and went missing right before her court date. Now, what we find in those domestic scenarios are, the commonalities that exist are, hey, there's going to be a court date, some kind of divorce or separation, an unwanted pregnancy that occurs, or the woman's set to leave, right? That she's going to expose the abuser. That creates a tipping point where, just like, I know Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito, that story's widely known. That's a tale as old as time when it comes to these cases. That's a very repetitive thing that we see.
It's just very scary as a parent. I'm a present parent. It looked like her parents were, but I guess you don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. Have you guys worked to find kids and remove them from cult situations?
I have not personally. We have. Now, I'll take this opportunity to say, you would be shocked at some of the stuff that comes across our email. Okay. So we have resources that are provided by USPA through a profit share that are, some of our profits go to support this cause, but we have limited resources, right? So this is not an unlimited amount of things. So we've seen reports of these cult-like activities. We got one sent to us a couple months ago about a group in Arizona. Parents said her daughter and her daughter's kids had joined this group, and they were into something. I forget what it was, but we see quite a bit of, or I shouldn't say quite a bit. Every now and then we see something like that, but we haven't directly worked on removing somebody from a cult.
Well, we've had some cultish type parents. The case in point, I won't say the exact location, but somewhere in the Carolinas, Brian and I worked on a case together, and there were, if two people could create a cult for one victim, these parents did it. It was an adopted daughter, and she was an adult actually, that they kept in the house as a child and even as an adult, and didn't let her have contact with the outside world. And then interestingly, the contact that she snuck around to have was very cultish type, fetish type chat rooms that I've never even heard of. But we were able to locate her as an adult, and she was listed as missing. So the police went to her when we got the location, and she said, I'm an adult and I don't want to go back to these people. So she had to like make herself go missing to get away from them. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And do you only work locating girls or missing boys as well?
95% is missing girls. We do take on some cases. We took on the case of Seamus Gray about 2 years ago. He was a young kid, and he was a young man in the Navy who went missing. We went out to that case. Unfortunately, he was found. He had drowned, but he was listed as missing and AWOL from the military. So we do take some cases. His mother's a local woman here in South Florida, and I had gotten that case because I had been one of his coaches in lacrosse when he was younger.
So just on a personal note, I do have a cousin that has been missing, I think now for 25 years from New Jersey, a male, but in your guys' line of work, after a certain point when no one has ever located a body or anything, what is the assumption? Is it that this person willingly ran away and doesn't want to be found? Or could
Uh,
it be other things?
everything's case by case, and we do quite a bit of work with cold cases. Okay, and I'll share with you how we look at a cold case and what we can provide a family.
Okay.
If they've had somebody who's missing for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years, there's always an opportunity for a fresh set of eyes to review everything that's come in on that case, every tip, every text message, all the communications, financial information, backgrounds on everybody that the missing person was with or their associates. So what we typically do when we take on a cold case is we get a fresh look at everything and we organize a case file, our own case file. All right, this is going to be everything from, building a timeline and then as detailed as we can get with every tip. Then we start re-vetting all the leads that came in. A lot of times families will have a Facebook page, so-and-so is missing, help us find them. Tips come in. 95% of those tips are, I heard that this person heard something, right? We're still going to look into this. How valid, or is this person connected to other people in this case? Is this good information, right? Then we take that case file, and here's where this can be important in locating remains or getting closure for a family. When you've got that case file built and you've really analyzed the details of each of these leads and each of the people that gave the leads, everybody who was with that person on the timeline. Now, when new things happen, okay, I'll give you a for instance, and I'll go back to my thing: drugs, inattention in the household, alcohol, and some kind of trauma, past trauma, right? So those are the commonalities of a vast majority of people who go missing. That means that they're around people who are also using drugs. Okay. That means that they're around people who are going to get court cases brought on them for possession, dealing. They're going to be breaking and entering and things like that. We've had a number of times where we work directly with local law enforcement and in some cases with the FBI on these cases where we provide them everything that we've put together. And we'll pick up the phone and call the case agent and say, hey, I just saw that so-and-so was arrested on a pretty big meth charge. We think he knows something about where Andy Wagner is or where Nikki Chang Saley McCain is. We think he knows, and here's why. And we're almost salespeople to the case agent at that point to say, it might be worth your time to go talk to him because he's probably going to look to make some kind of deal to get rid of this felony meth possession charge, right? That it could be in his interest to throw somebody under the bus here. So that's a service that we provide at no cost to families. I'll say it's, and I give the credit to Mike for starting this and giving us the opportunity to work on these things at no cost to families. It's an honor to help these moms who are getting no help from anyone else. Their daughter has been missing for 2, 3 years, and we can provide this, what's really a small bit of assistance to say, hey, we're prepared to make that pitch to a case agent to try to get you closure, right? We've got all the information of the case. We know everything. We're monitoring these people and we're ready to go.
So I know you're the lead investigator and, Mike is CEO, but you rely on a team of people, right? It's not just you, boots on the ground.
Correct.
So these are former Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, law enforcement officers, and they're just doing this as volunteer work?
In some cases, it's volunteer. In some cases, it's contracted private investigators. A lot of these guys have their own businesses where they're private investigators. We have private investigators across all 50 states that we work with. So, to give you an idea of how that plays out, it's like, hey, we're running the operation from headquarters, so to speak, and there might be a local private investigator that we've contracted to track down some of these leads that we've vetted. And that's how it's decentralized in that way. So it's not just the two of us or Dan Manning or somebody in our organization specifically doing it. But certainly with operational control of each of these cases is run by us.
But how many cases can you take on simultaneously with the limited funding and limited bodies that you have to do this type of work?
We're typically not taking on. Well, that's a great question because we have a hard time saying no to people. So we do our best to not bite off more than we can chew, and I think over the past few years we've gotten better at that. Especially with partnering with some other organizations who do similar things that we can push some of these folks to say, hey, we have to be able to dedicate the right amount of time to the cases we have committed to. But at any given time, it's no more than 6, 7, 8 cases. Some of these require less day-to-day work. Specifically when we're talking about the cold cases. A lot of that work happens in a sprint when we first take it on, and then it's about monitoring a tip line, getting the word out through media channels, trying to generate those leads and tips to the best of our ability.
So speaking of media channels, I know you, Brian, have been on Nancy Grace like 50 times or something like that. Has something like that show been helpful in locating a missing person?
Yeah, I'll tell you. The first case that I did with Nancy, and it's been a real honor to be on Nancy's show and to learn from her and to meet the other guests on the show. I mean, these are some really seasoned people who have done a lot of good across the United States and the world, I should say, and experts in their field. Now, the first case that Nancy's team asked me to look into was a missing woman in California. And this was where I really learned personally what media can do in a missing persons case, because we started working on the case right after we met the family, and I'm going to refrain from saying the woman's name just because she's been found and she's moving on with her life now. But right after Nancy's show aired, we started getting calls as the PIs that were looking into this. Then I got a call from a local news station. We got on the local news station, and within 48 hours, the aunt of the man that this woman was with, and she was in a mental health state of distress, and with a person who had a checkered past, like this was not a good situation. Within 48 hours, his aunt called me, okay, and said, I know where she is.
That's amazing.
And I have to say, and I have said it publicly before, had Nancy Grace not covered that story, I don't think, I do not believe that the outcome would have been as positive as it was.
And big shout out to Nancy Grace. I've been a fan since law school, and I think she herself became a prosecutor or a lawyer even because of something that occurred in her personal life. So she definitely, I give her a ton of respect, and I'm very impressed that you have been on that show so many times, but I am very happy that it was helpful to locating people. But that brings me to my next question. So the aunt, as I say it from Jersey, the aunt of the guy who kidnapped this woman or she willingly went with, I don't know, calls you. But if that person is an adult, can't she just say, I don't want to be found, leave me alone?
Yeah. So um, in Florida, you would call it a Baker Act. Okay.
Oh, because of the mental status.
Yeah. And I forget what now it was called in California. I'm up in Massachusetts myself. We have similar laws to the Baker Act in Florida. But it was that type of situation where, she was listed as missing, listed as in a mental health medical emergency state, and was able to get the treatment she needed and reunite with her family.
The unscrupulous people who lured her away from her life saw that we were sending a Navy SEAL on the ground to go and find her. And that's when that aunt called, because they wanted nothing to do with that.
I have so many questions. So how did Nancy Grace even know to call you guys to involve you?
That's a good question. We have a pretty public presence, and I guess our public relations work panned out. Her team does a great job at finding and vetting qualified guests to analyze these cases. And the promise we made to Nancy when we started doing some of the shows was that we're at least going to make the offer to the families to assist in their cases at no cost to the families. So this was one that happened to have a really positive outcome.
And now, at least in the past 5-10 years, how helpful has social media become as a tool to do your investigations? It's critical, right?
In the sense of gathering information. So social media. Here's the deal, right? It's a double-edged sword, because you can go on a wild goose chase based on what people on social media are commenting, messaging, replying to posts. You have to have a good filter. All right. And if you were reactive to these leads and information that come in on social media, if you don't have a good basis of knowledge on the case, and you're not doing the fundamentals of a missing person investigation appropriately, social media could be a huge time waster, because you start running down every rabbit hole. Now, I'll tell you where it comes in handy is it's crowdsourced information. We can get a lot of background. You start to figure out who's trustworthy, or who's worthy of reading their comments and their posts about a given case. And they start doing some of this background research that we don't have the time to do. Right. So it's a huge benefit. And it's like, cautionary tale is it can send you in the wrong direction just as much as it can help you.
Yeah, I would imagine. But it seems like when someone goes missing, people start looking at their Instagram, their TikTok to see who were they with at the last time or whatever. But
I'll tell you one case in particular down in your neck of the woods. This was just a little over a year and a half ago or so now. Missing teenage girl from a high net worth family. We had both things happen with social media in this case. We had posts saying that she was going, her own posts saying she was going to this party and that party and this location and that location. All right. And we're showing up. We've got agents buying tickets to foam parties and walking around and looking for her. We've got people in the parking lot of these nightclub venues that she was supposedly going to. was promoting these parties on her social media pages. All right. And we're striking out. All right. Every Thursday, Friday night for a couple of weeks, we're doing this. We're striking out every time. Trail's going cold. We just happen to see, so we're looking at her connections on Instagram. We happen to see one of her connections is doing an Instagram live from the back of an Uber. Turns the camera and we see the girl. So we now know she's with a real person who we now know that person's address, background, everything. Okay. Now I don't want to share too many names or details on this. I'll give another example. Realtor.com or Redfin, I forget which one it was. The detective from Palm Beach County. So we got that information of who she's with. And now the Palm Beach County missing persons detective, who is a 75th Ranger Regiment veteran himself, awesome guy. He starts going through addresses associated with this person. Matches up a ceiling fan in an Instagram post to a ceiling fan on a Redfin real estate listing.
That's some good detective work. Wow.
All right. Gets right over there. You know what? Finds the girl. She's safe. Makes an arrest because there were a lot of illegal things found in that house with the person she was with was over the age of 18 and had, some illegal things there. But that's an example, certainly where it was very, it hurt us at one point. We wasted a lot of time in the wrong places. But if you keep blocking and tackling with the fundamentals, that one ended up working out for us.
But how, because I think I saw there was a case around here where they had like a little video of somebody doing an Instagram live. How, just from that clip, can you guys figure out who the person is? Is it from people calling in tips?
No, that was just us. Again, when you're looking at like the routine work, we're trying to know everything we can know about her friends. We're trying to know where they are, who they hang out with. We weren't expecting to see her on that Instagram live. We just happened to. Okay. Going about our business of, all right, I see this person's friends with her. She likes a lot of her posts. All right. They seem to interact quite a bit on Instagram. They comment on each other's things. I'm going to learn everything I can about, let's say Jennifer is her name. I'm going to learn everything about Jennifer that I can. And now I'm just on that Instagram. Oh, she went live and there's the girl we're looking for.
So many years ago, there was the Elizabeth Smart case. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? She was taken, I think, for a few years and then finally found. And now she's, speaks about it all the time. But someone like her, this was someone, in the US, white girl, is that an anomaly compared to what you're seeing? It sounds like you said, there are three factors. It's trauma, parents that are not around. And what was the other one?
No attention, really.
Drugs
They're not
and
getting
alcohol.
much.
Yeah.
Oh, drugs and alcohol. She was a young child, so I don't think that applied. But these really, really high profile cases seem to be the anomalies, not like the day-to-day, what you're talking about.
It makes for good news and a good story if somebody actually is kidnapped in that manner and thrown into a van and put into a basement for 3 years. People want to hear about that. The interesting thing is people don't really react when we put out a reward for a girl who's a habitual runaway. And I think the reason why we focus on them is because we know where that path leads.
Right.
And we also, just so you know, we've offered a ride-along program for some people. We've done it. We've actually brought the quintessential Parkland PTA mom on a surveillance. As a matter of fact, the surveillance on the case he was just talking about, so that they can see firsthand what's actually happening with a well-to-do 14 or 15-year-old girl when they are habitual runaway.
It's, just scary is the word that comes to my mind. On a positive note, can you each, well, one at a time, tell me the most rewarding case you've had as part of Kingsman? I mean, I'm sure there are many, but one that really moved you. Start with you, Mike.
I mean, there's been so many.
Or just share one.
You know what? I'll share one. So about 2015, I met a girl. Her name was Ada, and she was being trafficked for many years, to the point where she was actually getting too old for them to traffic her any longer. So when I became aware of her, I helped her get out of her situation. And then she came to me and became like an informant to me, in the, I would say, the realm of like the Asian massage parlors. So in South Florida, in the Hollywood area. And she would let me know of girls that wanted to get out of that. Many of those girls come here and they're in debt in order to get to the US. And they may not be trafficked at gunpoint, but they have no other choice. They're here, and there's no other way for them to pay this money back, and they absolutely have to. So she has become a person who's let me know of girls maybe that are underage, or girls that just want to go back to China, go back to Korea. And so I think the best thing I did was by meeting her, because we've rescued countless girls from China and got them back there again.
So when you say she was trafficked for years, you're not talking about sex trafficking. Are you saying she was
Oh, I
made
am.
to work? Oh, you are.
I'm talking about sex trafficking. Yeah. These girls don't come here with the idea that that's what they're going to do. They come here for a better life. But it'll cost them $75,000 to get here. Usually they borrow that money from somebody back home. And in order to stay here on a green card, they're paying somebody $30,000 to $50,000 for that. And they need to pay that money back. They don't have a 30-year mortgage on that. They have to get it back very quickly. $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. Where else are they going to make that money?
So men that are supporting some of these less than reputable Asian massage parlors are actually supporting sex trafficking, essentially.
That's correct.
And what about you, Brian? Is there a case that stands out more than others that brought you significant joy?
Unfortunately, a lot of them don't necessarily bring significant joy. But one in particular, when you talk about like immediately rewarding, what wasn't a missing person case. It was a woman who had been very severely and violently abused by a boyfriend who was going to face him in court and needed protection as she did that. Really, did she need the protection? I don't know. Meaning, like, I think it was probably safe to go to court, but wanted somebody to go with her. And I got to know her and see the courage that she had to face him multiple times, multiple hearings, and one time that she was able to speak to the judge and stand up and tell her story. And when I think about rewarding, getting to meet her and see her courage was one of the more rewarding things. And then on a big picture um, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm a tool in God's hands is how I look at it. And Mike has given me the opportunity to do this. And, if I can provide some support and some hope to these families that are in hopeless scenarios, that's enough for me.
That's awesome. Okay. How can people help? Obviously, by making donations, right?
People can help by making donations, but I will tell you, um, we've gotten millions and millions of views on our content, and it's just not something that happens. Our biggest donor outside of USPA is a woman in Parkland who came and did a ride along with us. And besides that, it's really just self-funded. So yes, they can make a donation. They can go to uspasecurity.com, click on Kingsman, and the donation link is right there.
And what if someone wants to help with, some of the investigative behind the scenes? Are you guys open to that?
We look for people with specific skills that they've gained in in government work. For the most part, we have intelligence agents who were, at the top of their game, special agents. They will help us on the intelligence end. Like I said, we've got Navy SEALs. We've got guys who are Army Rangers. We've got guys that are Delta Force. We've got people who are federal police officers like me. You've got guys that were Marines. You got to have guys that specialize in different things. The one thing that and I'll just say the average person could help with is really getting the word out about what we do, because I think that's the issue that we run into for the most part. People know that we exist, but I think the word would get out, and maybe we would get a donation from somebody.
And I'm sure sorry,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. And I'll add one thing, and we're always open to volunteers, that have skill sets, in beyond, special operations, intelligence, or law enforcement. Some of these computer based, tech based people, mental health counselors. Those are great people for us to task organize and put on a case, to be able to speak to some of these families or missing children as they reunite with their families, because all too often it's one thing to find somebody, it's a second thing to get them the help they need after that. So that's always something that we're open to, and it goes beyond just like the highly trained and qualified former government employee.
Yeah, that's a good point, that, reintegration into everyday life for these girls must require a lot of therapy and support. Now, I know that this is self-funded. So how do you guys make a living? That's through the USPA side?
Correct. So we provide all sorts of every type of security service, from an unarmed guard watching a construction lot overnight, all the way up to highly trained executive protection agents doing VIP details in downtown Miami and all over the country. So we do that. And that business, we've been around and doing it for a long time. Mike started it, 20 years ago now.
That's right.
And, we're blessed that, that business is able to support this good work that we're doing with Kingsman.
Well, I want to thank you guys for doing what you do. I think it's amazing work. And if I can in any way help spread the word of what you do, and the fact that it's pro bono is just really remarkable and shows that you are just tremendous individuals. And I thank you for coming on Success of a Hot Mess, and we will be in touch.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
And real quickly, again, can you tell the name of the website?
So it's uspasecurity.com, and then click on Kingsman.
Okay. And can people donate through that website?
Yes, they could. The donation link is right at the top of the page once you click on Kingsman.
Okay. And Brian, you had mentioned you get emails all the time. Let's say somebody listening is in need of your services. Do they just shoot you an email?
Yeah, you can write you can go right to our website and open up a live chat right there. And, the email address and everything right on uspasecurity.com.
Do you guys happen to know offhand your success rate at locating?
That would be almost an impossible question to answer, and it's not really a stat that we keep. Um, you know, um, every case is its own case, right? We do a lot of cold cases, so it's not again, it's not really a stat we keep per se. I can tell you that's why, you asked the question, why don't you look for boys or is it just girls? We've found what we've been good at, right? And we've found what we know. So there's a whole different set of circumstances around a 16-year-old boy that runs away from home than a 16-year-old girl, right? So, we know what we're good at. We are very good and very effective at helping families, whether it's a cold case or a missing teen that left yesterday. That's where we thrive. But the success rate is not necessarily something that we're tracking.
No, that's like when a client comes in and, we're lawyers and they want to know the success rate. It's
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're a criminal defense attorney and it's like, hey, your client on Tuesday was caught on video shooting somebody and arrested minutes after it, and there's 25 minutes of surveillance video, and this guy's in a lot of trouble. And then the next client could come in and had nothing, no video, no probative evidence to put them away. Those two cases are totally different. And it would be hard to then say, hire this attorney or because they win 50% of the time,
right.
So that's kind of the same for us too.
But there are, just like there are bad lawyers out there, I'm sure there are investigators that take a ton of money from families and it just,
oh yeah,
nothing pans out. So I think it speaks a lot, to your guys' integrity, just the fact that this is a philanthropic corporation. So again, I thank you guys so much. And everyone go to uspasecurity.com/Kingsman if you'd like to donate to this very wonderful organization.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat. And hey, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a dose of inspiration. Until next time, keep rocking those hot mess moments with style and grace. Cheers.